It is June 26th, 2025. And we're waiting for people to show up. Oh, hi, Evie. How are you? Thanks for joining. Let's just say hi. What happens when I do that? I waved at you. I actually announced this live, so people had a little bit of warning. I announced it a few hours ago. Oh, there's a loud back noise. It's this fan. I just came from outside and I got so hot that I had to put this personal AC on. That was probably it. I have another fan on, but I don't think you can hear it. But yeah, it's hot out there today. Well, it's not really that hot, but I went for a really long walk. So and then I met these people, and I ended up standing in the sun for like 45 minutes. That didn't help. Hello. It's funny how TikTok has me saying more likes can attract viewers. Keep it up, and that's not actually me, but I guess it's automatic. That I guess if you hit like, it attracts people. I don't know. You can hear the other fan. Yeah, the other one's not going off. It's too hot. That's my air conditioner. But it's going to take a while to cool off in here. So I wanted to come on today to talk about the bigger picture of what's going on right now. You know, my usual subject. Oh, I probably need to change the title, right? There's a title. I mean, I gave it a title, but did it show up? I don't know how to find that now. Let's see. Pin my goal. Okay. All right, I have a dolphin goal. Hey, Kaylee. Yes, the 4 a.m. club. So TikTok is telling me I should encourage you to help me achieve my goal, and then I'll sing a song. But that's not going to happen because I don't sing. Sorry. So I don't know if the title is up there. But I had put a title on it that was something about the spiritual significance of the current moment. And so let me know if the title is up there. Hopefully it is. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. And so I'll just start talking about that. Yeah, Abby, TikTok's trying to make me sing. You don't want to hear me sing, though. You know, I come from a family of people who can sing. Like, everyone in my family is a good singer, except me. So the bar is kind of high, right? And I did grow up singing. I did sing in the choir at my high school, and I sang, my family sang Christmas carols every year. And we had a piano, and so we all sang around the piano. So I did sing, just not good at it. So I wanted to talk about the spiritual significance of the current moment. And, you know, this is something I've been talking about since November. And I think it's something that we have to keep talking about because it's going to help us deal with what we're dealing with. So, you know, whenever you go through something challenging, whether it's a personal challenge, a family challenge, or in our case, a national challenge, one of the things that really helps us deal with challenge is for us to try to understand the purpose of it. And I'm speaking from experience. I've been through some challenges in my life, and I have found that whenever I could make sense of it and understand why it happened, it was a lot easier for me to heal. I'm also speaking from my experience as a healer, as a medical intuitive, having worked with hundreds of clients who were very sick or who had gone through different challenges. And, you know, my job, I'm not practicing right now. I'm on a sabbatical from seeing one-on-one clients, so I'm not promoting myself. I'm just telling you stories. But when I used to see clients, I found, you know, my job really was to help them to understand the purpose of what they were going through. And I did find that when people got clarity on the spiritual significance of their trauma or challenge or illness, that they would heal much more quickly, and they would kind of have a way forward. How do we, they would help them to begin to kind of strategize their own healing plan. And so that's really what I see as my goal for the nation now, that I'm providing some spiritual explanation about the political moment so that we can all understand it better, with the idea being that if we can understand it better, we can come up with our own steps and strategies for how to survive and overcome it. Lizzie said, how long ago did this live start? About, I don't know, a few minutes. A few minutes ago. I've just started talking. And so I wanted to, the reason I came on here, I was teaching today, and in my classes, I teach these classes on the Shift Network, and they're live classes, and I lead meditations, and sometimes I have the meditations pre-recorded, so I'm not actually saying them, I'm just playing the recording. And sometimes I'll go ahead and do the meditation with my students, because why not? The more meditations, the better, right? The more you can meditate, the better, especially during trying times. And so today during the meditation, I was mostly focused on my students, but I did tune in a little bit, and I got a reminder from my guides that they wanted me to remember that I'm here to help people to understand the cosmic perspective. What's the bigger picture, right? What's the bigger picture? So that we can, figure out how to move forward, and also just how to emotionally handle it, right? Yeah, Evie's co-signing with me about the importance of meditation. And here's the thing. Let's talk about meditation for a minute. It's very hard to meditate when you're stressed out. So I know this. I'm not ignorant of this fact. So if you're stressed out and someone says, oh, you should go meditate, and you sit down to meditate and all you do is have all of the stressful thoughts repeating in your brain, you're like, how is this helpful, right? And so what I find is that when I'm stressed out or going through something and I want to meditate, I might start, before I sit down to meditate, I might do some prayers or affirmations. And so like I might go on YouTube and I'll play a video that's like affirmations or prayers, if you believe in prayers, whatever your background is. But something very positive and uplifting that can help you to kind of shift out of that fear, stress, and worry into a higher vibration. Once you've done that, then you can meditate, right? Because you've kind of cleared out your mind and now you're prepared to actually meditate. Thank you, Evie, for reminding people that we have to use code in all of my lives and in all of my posts. Because for whatever reason, that's just the situation. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's the situation we find ourselves in, which is kind of similar to the situation we find ourselves in general, right? We find ourselves in a situation where things are not the way they should be and things are not the way they used to be. And yet we have to find a way, right? Oh, Kaylee said working out before meditating helps. Oh, I agree. Working out is really good for stress. Any type of exercise, even if it's walking, anything that you can do that's physical is going to help. Also, things like gardening, crafts, anything that's like repetitive will put you into a meditative state, anything artistic. But yeah, running and biking and walking, all of those activities, the exercise helps with stress, but then they also can create a meditative state, right? I know this as a runner that, you're running, you kind of go into a meditative state. Just like when we're driving, we often go into a meditative state. Yeah, so I'm coming out here today to talk about, how do we deal with the current situation? How do we understand it from a spiritual viewpoint? And how does that help us? So, like most of you, I was really, shocked and upset and disappointed on January 20th. We can go back to November 5th, right? So there were lots of disappointments. But the first question I had was, why? Why did this happen, right? Why did this happen? And I've been asking that since November. Why? Why did this happen? And so I wanted to share some of the answers I've gotten in the hopes that it will also help you. And I also welcome everybody to share their answers in the chat. So if you've gotten your own answers, please share them with the chat so we can all benefit. Okay, so something that's become really clear to me of late as one of the reasons why this is happening is that we have a lot of broken systems right now. And in the past, we relied on those systems. So we were expecting our leaders to do certain things after November, right? When the evidence started coming out, the data started being revealed, when there were actual public confessions being made by the clowns, we actually thought that our leaders were going to take the action, the people who were actually, elected to represent us. And it hasn't happened, right? And it still hasn't happened. Some people are still waiting for it to happen. There's been a few people standing up, but for the most part, no. And we just saw evidence of that this week, right? With the petition for I that was defeated with the support of many, many blue hats, right? In the circus. And so it should be kind of clear to us at this point that the people or the institutions that we've long relied on are no longer reliable. And that's a really hard pill to swallow, right? And I think that's why most of us keep kind of holding out hope. Like, oh no, they're gonna develop a conscience tomorrow. Next week they're gonna develop a conscience. No, they're gonna stand up for us this month. And then all of these opportunities arise, right, where we're seeing repeated illegal behaviors, lots of justification for action, but no matter how many things happen, no matter how many illegal things that the head clown engages in, no action is being taken, right? Or very little. A little action, right? We've got the judges. And we have a few blue hats, right? AOC, Bernie, Adam Schiff. We got now Gavin Newsom in California. We have a few people, right? But what's become really clear is that it's not any one individual that's the problem, it's the whole system, right? And we have a system that is apparently incapable of or unwilling to do anything about the fact that somebody has gotten into office and is trying to become a dictator, right? And I think we always thought up until this moment that this would never happen because we thought we had a system in place that would prevent that. So I think we're in this moment where we have to kind of reflect and reevaluate. Oh yeah, Jasmine. Yeah. Sorry, Jasmine Crockett, one of the main ones fighting back. Yeah, we're at this moment now where we have to kind of recognize that, hey, it's really on us, right? It's up to the people. We can't actually expect them to fix this. And, what I've been told by my guides is that we're at this point in our evolution as humans where a lot of systems are crumbling or being revealed as unfixable, right? And it's not just our government system in the United States, right? We're seeing this in other countries with their governments, and we're also seeing it with other systems. So some other systems that we can see that really are seeing it with other systems. So some other systems that we can see that really aren't working for us in the United States are, healthcare. The healthcare system isn't working, right? So most, our healthcare system is really good for certain things like trauma and certain types of conditions that can be resolved with surgery and pharmaceuticals. But for the majority of people who have chronic illness, the current healthcare system isn't helping them at all. And so we can look at these different systems. Another system we can look at is marriage, right? Marriage as a system is not really working anymore, and so we're starting to see that crumble, right? We're seeing women just, saying, no more, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then we have, men complaining that nobody will marry them, right? No one wants to have kids. And so that's another system, right? And so this is important spiritually. So we have to kind of zoom out. It's not really about our government only, and it's not just about like men and women and whether they get along, and it's not just about money in medicine, for-profit medicine. It's actually something much bigger than all of that, and it's actually that we are spiritually at this point in our evolution where we need to recognize that a lot of the systems that we have developed as humans are not working, and they have to be, let go of, crumbled, remade, right? Yeah, so Evie said, like the patriarchy falling, right? That's a perfect example. Rise of the divine feminine. In order for the divine feminine to rise, the patriarchy has to fall, right? In order for us to have, equality, our current system of inequality has to be changed, right? It has to be reconstructed, right? So what I've been shown is that the reason that things are happening this way, the reason things are getting so bad, right? And they just seem to be getting worse, right? Like we just keep thinking, it's the end. It can't get any worse than this, and then it gets worse, right? And it's because we have to get to the point where we're ready as a society to give up certain systems and build new ones. And it's hard for people to get to that point, right? People just like to be comfortable. People like to just keep the status quo. People like to just live their lives. People don't want to be, out on the street fighting for evolution with an R, right? And so it's difficult for us to get to that point where we're willing to seriously consider massive change, right? We keep wanting to believe that it's fixable, that we can reform it, that we can just make a few tweaks, and then it'll be okay. And what's happening instead is that spiritually we're at this point, and the astrologers agree with this. If you look at the astrology too, that we're at this point. The historians also agree, right? That if you look at history, you look at the 250 mark point for civilizations, right? This is what happens. So we have a lot of signs, and we have a lot of different people in different fields who are all saying similar things about this moment in time, right? We're at this really important moment in time where great change is inevitable, right? So spiritually, we're at this point where we need to evolve, and the only way we can evolve is to undergo great change, which is not easy. I think most of us would rather just change slowly and gently, right? And we could have. So if we had gone in a different direction on a different timeline, and the Lotus Queen had been allowed to sit in the seat that she earned, then we would have had slow change, because that the system would have still been in place. So even though we might think that she was going to make some changes, there was only so much change she was going to be able to make because the system had not been changed. And we saw that with Obama, right? Where we thought he was going to make all this change, but he was severely limited by the structure of the government. So now that we've gotten on this other timeline where things are much worse, we're in an accelerated timeline. So yes, things are much worse, but we're also going to change a lot faster now because we have to. We're at this point where we're kind of pushed up against the wall where it's do or die. It's like either we change or we perish, right? And if you look at your life, a lot of us could look at our lives and see how this is a recurrent theme, right? That, somebody is in a relationship and it's really not working for them and it's really toxic, but they don't want to leave because it's too hard to leave. And they don't want to have to move house, and they don't want to disrupt the family unit, and they don't want to do all these difficult things that are entailed in leaving a long-term relationship. And so they stay, right? And then something really, really bad happens. And then they're forced to leave. And when they leave, it ends up being very good for them because it allows them to grow, right? In a way that they were not going to grow as long as they stayed in that dysfunctional relationship. But we can see this in our lives a lot. I certainly have seen it in my life where something really dramatic happens and it forces me on this accelerated path of development. And so this is where we're at actually as a planet. We're on this timeline where we're having to deal with huge challenges so that we can begin to enter onto this accelerated period of growth. And so this is what I've been shown about why we're going through this. And even though I know this, and even though I've been told this, I still wake up every day and every week when I see the newest news flash, I'm like, oh my God, seriously? Like, wasn't it already bad enough last week and now we're doing this? And so we're all going through this, right? This bad news. And we just have to keep reminding ourselves that there is a purpose to this. And one of the big purposes to this is waking us up, right? Waking us up. Not just waking up some people, waking up all people. So that's what like the FAFO is about, right? The FAFO is people, effing around and finding out. And so there's a lot of jokes about the FAFO for the Magatonians. And someone else used that term and I really liked it. I'm forgetting who it was. I want to give her credit. She used that term, Magatonians. Well, anyway, if someone knows who that is, tell me so I can say her name. Right, the Magatonians are having their FAFO moment. Oh, I didn't vote for this. I'm a veteran and now I'm losing my benefits. I didn't know this was going to happen to me. I'm a child of an immigrant and now they're deporting my father. I didn't know this was going to happen to me when I voted for him. Right, so there's a lot of FAFO happening. I voted for him because he said no more war, and now we seem to be going to war. Right, so these are all the FAFOs, right? These are all the revelations happening where people are like, oh, I see, right? The revelation. And it's happening among the Magatonians in the form of FAFO, right? Having unhappy revelations about what's really the consequences of their actions. On the other side, there's more than one. There's more than two sides. We have another group of people who decided that both sides were equally bad, and so they just decided, I'm not going to participate, and they did not go to the polls, and of course they contributed to this situation, and so they're also dealing with the consequences of their apathy, right? They're having a different kind of FAFO. And then, especially those people, and this is a sensitive topic, but I'm going to try to talk about it within limits because I can't use the language, but there's a certain land, the watermelon land, and I had a number of friends prior to the big joust who said, oh, I can't vote for the blue side because of the watermelon land. And I spent all this time, weeks, trying to talk people into participating in their democracy because I said the consequences of the Magatonians getting into office will be very, very bad for all of us, including the watermelon people. If you care about the watermelon people, you have to make this choice. And there were some people who just couldn't see it. They were just stuck. They were just stuck in this mindset. And now, of course, we're seeing it unfold that it's so much worse now for the land of watermelon because, the circus is supporting, their extinction. So, Debbie doesn't know what watermelon people is. So there was in this movement, the symbol watermelon was used on social media to represent this strip of land in the Middle East where people are dying in huge numbers. So people used that term, that symbol, watermelon. And I think it's because the watermelon has the same colors as their flag. But I'm just not going to use that language in my life because I have to worry about things like that. So I have to be very careful. Plus, I'm a storyteller, so I like to use names for all the things. I have characters, and I don't use the real names of anything. I'm telling stories. So in this story, the people of the watermelon have been being wiped out, right, with the help of our circus. And so those people, my point was the different people who are having their revelations, right? So we have those people who are having their revelation of, here, I thought I was standing up against, what's the word for that? Generic side. I was standing up against generic side, right? We'll call it generic cider, right? If you get my meaning. I'm standing up against Eric cider, and that's all that matters. But they didn't have the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that if you make that choice, it's going to get worse, right? But people didn't have that bigger picture, and so that's what I'm here to talk about today, is the bigger picture. And then we had another side, right, that actually did participate in their democracy and tried to pick the Lotus Queen, but their tickets were not recognized. So, but even they are also having a revelation because a lot of them had complete faith in the system, and they really thought that their leaders, as long as they wore blue hats, that they would do the right thing and that they would stand up for what was right, and they would speak out about EI, and that they would consider petition of I, and that they had all these expectations, right, of their system. They thought that the Constitution was inviolate, right? That there's no way we would ever have a leader who would not follow it. They thought that the body of makers of laws would always protect the Constitution, right? We had a lot of beliefs. And people are having to realize that was not correct, and that they were wrong. Those beliefs didn't turn out to be accurate, right? And so that's another type of revelation. And so I love the TikTok shop. I have a whole showcase of TikTok shop items if you want to go shop. So we're in this moment of revelation. That's my point. We're in this moment of revelation. And it's just because we're at this important point in our spiritual evolution where what is needed is for us to recognize that we have to completely restructure numerous systems that we've been relying on for a long time, which we are now finally realizing do not serve us. And unfortunately, the way that the universe is getting our attention about that is to make it really, really, really obvious, right? So, like, we thought we had checks and balances, right? We thought we had a republic with a participatory democracy. We thought we had elections that were free and fair and that couldn't be corrupted. We thought that, some people thought we had a meritocracy. I mean, not all of us some of us, we know it's not one. But, right, we had certain beliefs, and this crisis is forcing us to recognize that we need to kind of wake up to what's wrong with a lot of these systems, right, that we were just kind of relying on, even though we knew they weren't serving us. And so, the examples I gave were marriage, our healthcare system, and our governing system, right? These are three institutions which people are realizing in kind of a dramatic way lately are not really working for us. And so they have to be completely restructured. So, unfortunately, sometimes the best way we learn is by being pushed up against a wall or having something thrown in our faces in a really dramatic way. And that's where we're at, right? Is that we're starting, things are becoming undeniable, right? Those of us who for many months now have been holding out hope that our leaders were going to do something, right? We're starting to have to face reality. And the reality is that it's the people that are going to do something. It's the people. It's us. And this is actually a good revelation to have, as challenging as it is, right? It's still a good revelation to have, because it's basically a revelation that's reminding us of our power. It's reminding us of our sovereignty, right? We don't have to wait for other people to save us. We can be the ones that do the saving, right? When we come together, we're really powerful. And we can only really recognize our strength when we come together in large numbers and we demonstrate it. We actually come together and say, like on June 14th, right? The No Kings, we had over 13 million people, right, coming out. And we needed to see that. We needed to come together, and we needed to have that experience so that we could understand how powerful we are, right? We're not just victims. We're not just pawns. We're not just powerless little plebes, right? We are powerful people when we come together and, unite. And so this is one of the spiritual lessons that we're getting right now. For those who are just tuning in, this live is all about what is the spiritual significance of the current political moment. And I want to talk about this because I think that when we understand why we're going through something challenging, it makes it a lot easier to go through something challenging, right? When we can make sense of it, we understand the purpose. Especially when we understand the higher purpose, right? Because a lot of times we just get so mired in the day-to-day, in the physical, in the harsh reality of our lives. But when we can just kind of move up a little and have an expanded view, it makes it more tolerable. It makes it so that we can strategize more effectively because we are informed by this higher vision. Okay, so I'm going to address some questions now. Let's see if there's some questions. And Evie, feel free to pin a question if you see a good one. Right, Jewel. No savior is coming. We are the savior. We are the savior. Yeah, exactly. So Strong Voice said, now we can understand how a council works, but before we couldn't conceive it. So we've had this really hierarchical, patriarchal structure for government, right, for a couple hundred years now. And for a lot of people, that's their only understanding of even political organizing, right? I'm seeing this in some of the work that I'm doing where so many organizations are used to having that hierarchical structure, and a lot of times it's very patriarchal. Like you have men running a lot of things and doing all the talking in the meetings, right? Holding forth, and then the women are doing all the labor, right? So we see these structures even in our organizing, not just, we see them in families, we see them in our government structures, we see them in corporations, we see them in a lot of places. And we're starting to understand that that structure doesn't serve us, right? We need councils, right? We need more circular structure. We don't need We don't need the hierarchical structure. We need the circular structure, the councils. We need people to come together, be equal partners. We need, you know, organizations where we share. So I belong to an organization which works in that way, where everybody, there's lots of leaders, there's no one leader, there's lots of leaders, and everybody is allowed to contribute their voice and to influence the direction of the organization. But then there are other organizations where they're so used to having the one leader, sometimes a charismatic leader, the person that's the best speaker, right, gets to be the leader, the person who fits certain demographic criteria gets to be the leader, the person who has certain traits. When in a council situation, we recognize that different people have different things that they bring to the table, and one person might not be a good speaker, but they have all the best ideas, and the other person is, you know, doesn't have the best ideas, but they're really courageous, and so they have that passion and they know how to act when it's time to act. So we have to, you know, when we work as a council, we bring all of our gifts together, and it's a better way to work. And so we're seeing this. We're seeing how we have to change, right? We have to change the way we think. We have to change the way we structure our institutions, and we have to find ways to build new institutions that are really serving everybody, right? Yeah, and thanks for people for, you know, being careful with your language. We don't want to, I don't want to lose my account, and so if you could just please do that, I'd appreciate it. You know, I have used a lot of words in my stories, and so feel free to use the words I use, or if you need to use your own words, maybe I'll figure it out. I'm sure we'll find a way, right? If you use a word, like I said watermelon, someone didn't get it, we'll figure it out. Okay, are there any more questions? I can just hold forth, or I can also answer questions. So we're talking about the spiritual significance of the current political moment. Okay, here's a question that Evie pinned. Are you feeling his energy depleting as other mediums are? You know, I saw his, you know, I had a vision which was back in January, and I'm just waiting for it to unfold. So it's been frustrating because I haven't seen it unfold. But I saw a vision of him on a table with a medical emergency having to do with the kidneys, and I saw a bunch of doctors and surgeons doing emergency surgery. I also had a vision of him laying in state in the rotunda. But I don't have a sense of when it's happening, unfortunately. So yes, I do agree with others. I'm not feeling it, so that language doesn't apply to me. I saw something, I didn't feel it. I've seen that future, but I haven't seen the timeline for it. And I've occasionally seen him speak and tuned in. And what's weird to me is that sometimes when I do, he feels really sickly, and other times he doesn't. And so I'm trying to make sense of that. Is he on some kind of roller coaster health-wise where he's much better and then much worse? Or are these two different people? You know, is there a stand-in, right? Because what I did see, one of the things that I do as a psychic medium is I do remote viewing. And so in my most recent remote viewing, and I'll just tell you what remote viewing is. Remote viewing is when you take your consciousness to a particular location to kind of spy on people. And I call it spying because this terminology was developed by the US government for the purpose of spying, right? So they basically got a bunch of psychics and they trained them to use their gifts to look at particular places in the enemy's country, to look at their munitions and sit in on meetings, right? That was the purpose of it. It's similar to other things, other names that we call things like out-of-body travel or, you know, psychic, you know, clairvoyance, right? It's similar, but the difference is that you pick a particular place and you very intentionally try to go there and see what's happening. And so I did that recently, and I was remote viewing the white tent, right, in the circus, and the House of White, and I actually saw all of this pandemonium. That was this week. All of this pandemonium with these players who are all kind of vying for power in the House of White. And I overheard a discussion by who I call Adolf Milkman, who's in charge of the Coldwater Clown cars. And Adolf Milkman was saying, oh, yes, there were other people saying, oh, we need this figurehead because he's very popular among a certain group, and we need him to keep our program going. But then Milkman was saying, no, he's really problematic. We don't need him. We could just create the illusion that he's here. And they weren't talking about a stand-in. They were talking about, well, I don't know if they were talking about that, but they were talking about using videos and AI and different ways of manipulating images so that it looks like that person, but it wasn't that person. And so I guess there are different possibilities, right, for how it could be that sometimes when we're tuning into him, we're picking up somebody who's very ill. And also sometimes when you're just listening, you will hear somebody who sounds like they have dementia. And on other occasions, he will sound coherent. And when we tune into him, he will feel healthy at times. It doesn't make sense to me that he could go from those extremes physically. I can just tell you as a clairsentient, I don't usually experience that. Like if I'm tuning into my client and they're sick and I can feel their sickness, it doesn't go away the next day, you know? And then, you know, it doesn't go like that. It doesn't go back and forth. So my answer to the question, do you feel his decline, is sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. And it's very strange. And so I guess another possible explanation for that is that he's getting a lot of really strong medication, causing him to have good days and bad days. Maybe, or maybe it's the type of illness where you have good days and bad days. Of course, that happens, right? Yeah, Katie mentioned dialysis, meds and dialysis. Yeah, so it's interesting that for the first time I recently heard someone mention dialysis. Well, you know, I got kidneys in January. Everyone else was saying stroke and heart attack and all this stuff, but I got kidneys. And so now people are saying dialysis, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm getting. So I'm glad to see I'm not the only one. And I don't remember why people are saying that, but I feel like there was some medical, oh, that's why. So Mindful Mel says, oh, something about evidence of a folate cath. And then there was also some talk about evidence from some nurses I heard talking about evidence of an IV in the hand. So that's my answer to that question is, yes, I see a medical decline, but I also am tuning into him being healthy on some days and unhealthy on other days. Whether or not that's really him, I don't know. So that's a little confusing, right? So Shelley from the UK, no, Shelley YK, put my glasses back on, is saying that Space Boy said something about a double, and that's when they fell out. Oh, so I didn't hear about that. They do tend to always tell them themselves, don't they? It's kind of interesting. Yeah, Katie says she's also seen the on-off thing. Yeah. I'm just looking for questions now. Someone said they want to, Debbie said she wants to be a spy. um, holding, oh, I think you made me meant hoping the tech bras go by the wayside with JD versus coming in. This is a question. Thoughts? Okay, let me see if I can make sense of it. I think you're asking, will the tech bras go by the wayside? So you're probably talking about, what did I call him? I can't remember all my character names. In the most recent story, I was talking about some of the clowns, and there's a teal clown who's trying to bring robots into the circus, and I think that's one of the people you're talking about. I did also just see something about Starboy developing some type of robot that's supposed to be enforcing the cold water car agenda, the cold water agenda of Adolf Milkman. I don't know if that's true, if somebody can say whether that's true. I just saw one post about it, about these humanoid robots that are going to be used as police to kidnap people. And I was shocked by that because I thought, of course, that he was no longer involved. Yeah, they were like military bots. So someone say if you know more about that. So the question was, do I think they're going to continue to be involved, I think, or are they going to not be involved? I don't see any reason why the Seven Thieves would not continue to be involved. So for those who've been following my stories from the beginning, I talked about how the way that the head clown the way that the circus was allowed to come to town, even though they weren't invited, was because of these Seven Thieves, right? These very rich merchants who were supporting the head clown, and because they all had vested interests. And some of those merchants are the people we're talking about: the teal clown, the star clown, Adolf Milkman, right? These are some of the merchants who have been involved in this project from the very beginning. So they were instrumental in the finagling of the joust. They helped to make it happen, and they are super invested in a particular agenda, which they're carrying out right now. And in fact, what I saw in my most recent vision, that remote viewing I was doing, was that the orange clown is not actually running anything. He's just the figurehead, and it's these other merchants that are actually running things behind the scenes. And so, no, I don't see them going anywhere. And that's why the whole circus has to be evacuated. It can't just be, oh, let's get rid of that one clown, right? They all have to be kicked out of town. And so that goes back to the theme of this live, right? The reason I'm coming out live is that we have to look at the bigger picture. What we have, so this is another example of why the system is broken and needs to be completely restructured. We have a situation right now where the way that the realm is run is it's run by gold, right? So it's run by merchants and it's run by gold. And gold has completely infiltrated leadership, so that it's not really possible at this point for a person to get into a leadership role in this realm without having gold. And it's really not possible for people to run the realm without gold being involved. And as a result, we have all of these merchants or vendors who are actually running the circus. And so we think the circus is run by clowns, and we have these clowns, they're great performers. Some of them have different, got the orange-nosed clown and the star-nosed clown and the teal, right? We have different clowns. The clown with all the eye makeup, right? And those are the performers. Those are the ones that are on the stage that are doing the entertaining. But behind the scenes, it's actually the vendors, the merchants that are running the circus. And this problem predates the current circus, right? And so this is what I'm talking about when I said, we're at this moment in our evolution as humans where we're recognizing that a lot of our systems don't serve us. And a lot of our systems are so incredibly flawed structurally that they have to be completely reconstructed. And people don't like to do that. We don't like to give up our institutions. We don't like to give up our structures. And so the only way we do it is when we're pushed up against a wall and we feel we have no choice. And so that's what's happening to us now. We're being pushed up against a wall. We're dealing with crisis after crisis. Things are getting worse and worse in order to push us into this spiritual acceleration. And so the bigger picture is a good picture, right? The bigger picture is that, we're evolving. The smaller picture is that we're suffering, right? Or some of us are suffering. Some people are suffering in order for all of us to evolve. And that's the part that's really hard to take, right? Because most of us can't tolerate seeing our neighbor suffer, right? Some people don't care if their neighbor suffers, but a lot of us, we really care. We don't want our neighbors to suffer. And yet, this is where we're at, right? Spiritually, is that we are having to deal with really serious challenges and crises in order to wake us up. Enough of us, a critical mass of us, have to wake up so that we can evolve and create new structures. And the structures I've talked about for those who are joining late are things like our governing structure, our healthcare structure, our the structure of marriage. There's lots of structures. You can put them in the chat if you can think of some other structures, right? There's a lot of structures that we are in the process of changing. Yeah, Debbie, that is the hardest part. Those who are suffering. It's the hardest part of this. And that's why so many of us are involved in working as people protectors and resistors and different roles in order to try to protect people. And this is an opportunity for us, right? So when something really bad happens, when you're a witness to someone getting harmed, spiritually, that's happening because it's giving your soul an opportunity to be of service. It's giving your soul an opportunity to make a choice. And that choice is really significant for the evolution of your soul, right? And so if you incarnated at this time, it was very intentional. Your soul chose this period of time, this crazy period of time, right? I mean, we gotta laugh. We gotta laugh because we're not gonna make it if we don't laugh. We gotta laugh, right, at how crazy these times are. And you have to laugh and think, why would my soul pick this time? Why? I could have incarnated into so many other time periods where things were more peaceful. Why, right? But what I've learned as somebody who reads the Akashic Records, as someone who is a medium and who has talked to lots of souls who've passed, I've also visited people's pre-life conferences where they're making decisions about their life. Oh, I'm going to have this kind of body and this kind of family and I'm going to live in this town and I'm going to have this kind of class and race and gender. They make these decisions as souls. It's always because it's going to assist them in their spiritual evolution, or it's going to assist them in helping others to evolve on their spiritual path. And of course, when we get here and we're living these lives, we're like, oh my God, I would never choose this. Right? Never choose this. And yet you did, Blanche. You did choose it. And I think if we accept the fact that we choose it, it will help us. Because, of course, it's not you, little you, that chose it. Your higher self, right? Your soul. Someone smarter than you chose it. Someone with a bigger perspective chose it. Also, someone who didn't maybe know how bad it was going to be, right? Because the decisions we make on the other side, you know, are made in an environment of total peace and love. So it's easy to sign up for really, really challenging missions when you're living really comfortably, right? And we usually are, right? When we make those decisions, when we decide to take up something, we're like, oh yeah, how bad could it be? And it's probably good that we don't know how bad it could be, because then we wouldn't sign up. So yeah, what was my soul possibly thinking? Asked Be the Person. We have to figure that out, right? We have to figure some of that out. We have to figure out why we chose to incarnate at this time. And so that's another thing that's happening right now, is a lot of people are finding themselves being pushed in the direction of spiritual reflection, of self-development, of asking those questions. Why? What's my purpose? Why did I incarnate? Why am I here at this time? What did I come to do? Right? What is the meaning of all this? We're being pushed to ask those questions about ourselves, about our life, about our country. Uh-oh, they're trying to wait. I gotta push some buttons. You know, we have to ask these questions. And so this is the spiritually positive part of crisis, is that when we're in crisis, it tends to make us reflective. It tends to make us ask questions. It tends to force us to grow. And that's what we're doing right now. We're growing at a really accelerated rate, and it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable at all. But we are growing, we're evolving. And we saw proof of this on June 14th, right? Where 3.8% or 13 million people were in people's parades all around the country, in red and blue districts, small and large, young and old. Every background was out there. And this is because people are evolving, right? People are evolving. People are tapping into their sovereignty. People are recognizing that they're powerful, right? We're all powerful. We don't have to depend on somebody in a position of leadership who we thought was representing us, who turns out to be only representing their own interests. We don't have to rely on them. We can rely on ourselves and our neighbors and our communities. And this is a wonderful thing for us to learn. You can see how it's going to help us to grow and become better people when we feel confident in our power. Let me look at the questions again. Evie said healing can be very messy. Yes, it can. We're in a very messy healing crisis. So those of you who are healers or spiritual, you may have heard that expression, healing crisis. Our nation is in a healing crisis. So there's this idea of a healing crisis that people have in certain healing modalities, where when you're undergoing a treatment, things get worse before they get better, right? So for certain treatments, like a perfect example is a purge, right? You decide you're going to fast, or you're going to do some detox, right? For your health, for your gut health. Well, anyone who's been through that knows it's pretty gnarly, right? You have to do maybe some, you know, I don't want to use, what words can I use? You might have to do some vomiting. You might have to do some vomiting from the other end, right? You have to go through some cramps, right? It's uncomfortable, it's painful, it's gross. It gets worse before it gets better. And sometimes during a purge, you'll have a rash that breaks out. You know, you might remember this one time I was taking this particular supplement that was a detox, and all of a sudden I got white spots all over my body, and that was creepy. I was like, what the heck? But it was just a part of my skin detoxing, right? And so it gets worse before it gets better, right? That's the healing crisis. And sometimes it gets so bad that people think, oh my God, I'm a goner, right? Like they might be in the middle of a healing crisis, and their fever will spike really high, and they're like, oh, I'm dying, right? And it's just their body's way of killing the virus or whatever. It goes into this extreme, right? And then they get better. And so the U.S. is in a healing crisis right now. We are in the process of changing dramatically, but it's really painful right now. And that's because it's getting worse before it gets better. And every day, every week, we're like, I can't believe it's worse, right? We thought it was bad last week. How is it worse? And yes, I agree with Strong Voice that the U.S. starts the process, but set the precedence for all others. Yes. So this is kind of our role as a nation, is that this is kind of our role as a state. Like California is that state in the union right now. So as goes California, so goes the nation, right? That's been our history in the state of California, is that we do something here and then it spreads. But that's also been the situation with this country, is that, you know, we often do things in this country and then it spreads to other countries. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, right? So we do have that role, and I was shown that by my guides quite a while ago. I was shown that we were going to go through some difficult things, and they were going to start in the U.S. and then they were going to spread. And I was told that they were going to start here because there's a way in which we're the focus of a lot of people are always looking at us, right? We're the showboaters. We're the really loud, you know, charming and super annoying cousin, right? At every family reunion, everyone's like, oh, what are they going to do? They're always doing something interesting. Not always good, but always interesting, right? And so we have the attention of the world. And because we have that attention, we're able to influence the world in certain regards. And so right now we're showing people, you know, maybe what not to do, right? Like, this is how you, if you want to lose democracy, follow this example, right? So this is what we're teaching people right now. You know, how to lose your democratic institutions. That's what we're teaching right now. And so it's kind of a cautionary tale, right? For some people, like, oh, okay, let's not do what they did. Let's not take that route the U.S. took. And so some people are learning that lesson from us. Like Canada is learning that lesson from us. They just made a decision in their most recent contest based on our cautionary tale. But then there are other places who are not learning, right? Who are like, oh yeah, let's try that. So they're gonna have the longer lesson, like us. Yeah, Debbie said, don't elect felons, don't do what we did. Not that we did do that, but so I'm going to try to answer some more questions. Karen is pointing out that there are millions around the world standing with us and protesting in solidarity. It's true. We do have a lot of support. Strong Voice asked a question about whether or not I think a whole new, can I say that word? Whether a whole new paper, national contract might be a good word for that. So we have this national contract, right, which lays out rights and responsibilities for everybody in the country and how we want things to be run. And is there going to be a new one? Yes, I think so. There's going to be a new everything. It's going to be a new everything. And that's why it's so hard. Because it's hard to change, and it's hard to change this much, and it's hard to change this fast. PR Maxie, who is an author, fellow author, hello, is asking, did anyone else dream about first contact 2 nights ago? I didn't dream about it 2 nights ago. I've had a number of contacts with star beings. I am feeling excited though. Let's talk about them for a minute. So earlier, I forget when, December, January, there were all these orbs, right? There were all these star beings around our planet, and they were telling me that, you know, we were about to evolve, and that's why they came. They wanted to help us. They wanted to be here when this big shift happened. But they were also here because of the threat of Newtonian war. And I forget what was happening back then, but there was something happening where that was a possibility. Oh yeah, it was the war over there in the vodka country, and then the country, the sunflower country, the war in the sunflower country that involves the vodka country, right? And so there was this talk of Newtonian weapons, just like there's talk now. And what I was told very clearly by the star beings is, we're absolutely not going to let that happen. We always stop that from happening, and we're actually here in part because you guys are on the brink, and we have to make sure we stop it. And so when I heard this talk recently, this last week, in our newest toy soldier game of Newtonian weapons, that made me hopeful, because whenever that starts getting thrown around as a possibility, the star beings come back. And so I'm like, bring it on, please. Because of course, even though I know I shouldn't still be thinking this way, I keep thinking, okay, will someone save us? Maybe the star beings will save us. I've been begging them, right? I was even doing meditations for a while. We were asking them, because I said to them, why can't you save us? And they said, we can't interfere unless we're asked to. We have to be invited. And I'm like, well, lots of us want you to. And they're like, well, you need a critical mass of people asking us to come interfere, like to assist you. And so I was doing meditations for a while, telling people, come on, let's all visualize asking them. So, do that if you want to. But it would be nice to get their support. All right, more questions. What was the fireball in the sky scene? I didn't hear about that, and I haven't gotten anything about that, so I can't answer that question. The author PR Maxey said that they landed and told me to call to them if I felt threatened, because they'd protect. So yes, you can do that. You can ask for assistance. And so we can all ask for assistance. So I want to just co-sign on what PR Maxey said. You can ask for assistance. So Lizzie asked, on a related question, where did all the O bags go? They left at a certain point. Most of them, not all of them, but I saw a lot of them leave, and it was because the threat was gone, the threat of Newtonian war, and it was because we weren't asking them to interfere. Enough of us weren't. They're going to interfere without our asking if Newtonian war is at risk, because that would impact the whole galaxy and not just us. Okay, I don't know what that means. Okay, I'm trying to follow. I guess there's a conversation. So Snippety Schopenhauer, interesting name. I liked reading Schopenhauer. I'm a philosopher, so I did teach a lot of philosophers, including Schopenhauer. Are you following New York City's mayoral race? Just a little bit. I know that there was this really, this big upset that people are feeling very hopeful about. So Karen is just letting us know that there were 20 global protests on 6/14, in addition to our 2,000 parades. Okay, and then Evie is reminding us that it's meditation time. So I'm just gonna maybe answer a couple more questions, and then we'll do a meditation. Let me see if there's any more questions. Might not be. Millions around the world standing with us. Okay, I think I've answered them. Okay, I'm just gonna scroll down, make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, author PR Maxey said that she can't remember what the star beings look like. That's intentional. So I've had that experience too, where sometimes I work with a lot of different star beings, and sometimes I'll be talking to one and they won't let me see their face. And they'll do that because they might have an appearance that is shocking or scary to us because of our own cultural hang-ups, right? So like if we see a being that's, you know, like looks like a little gray, we might necessarily be that scared. But if we see one that looks like an octopus with lots of appendages, we might, you know, or like an insect, we might freak out. So sometimes they won't let us see what they look like. Echo fusion. What was the echo fusion question? What is our path to success? Lola Gilletta, and I'm not sure if you heard my live up until now. Our path to success is spiritual awakening, right? Spiritual awakening, unity, and the power of the people coming together to make change. That's our path to success. Okay, I can't find the other question. Down Bad Maggie says she thinks they were disarming booms on our own soil in January. I agree. They were here because there was one. So the vodka country actually, I think, did send one and they disarmed it. 70 minutes maybe. Okay, so we're going to meditate. Yeah, global awakening, not just the US. It's a global awakening. Last question I'm going to answer. Are the lower clown team realizing this is a spiritual and vibrational issue? I think probably most of them don't. Some of them do, because some of them do have a spiritual life, but it's like what I call filthy magic. Some of them are engaged in ritual, and they do recognize it as a spiritual battle. They're just on the, you know, they're on the other side of it. They're not enlightened people, but they are aware that there's a spiritual battle. Okay, here's one question that someone is saying I missed. Chevy Mama Echo Fusion's question was, do you have thoughts on having the exact same dream as someone close to you? Yes, that means that you traveled out of body together at night. So astral travel, when you leave your body at night, we often remember those trips as dreams. If you travel with somebody, then you will both have the same memory of a dream. It's really a memory of you traveling out of body. Okay. All right, it's meditation time. So get comfortable. Get comfortable. You might want to stretch and yawn. Take a nice deep breath. Yawning just helps you to relax. And when you're ready, you can close your eyes and begin to breathe slowly and deeply. Breathing in relaxing blue light and breathing out gray smoke. Slowly and deeply. Breathing in relaxation and breathing out all that does not serve you. So that with each breath, you become more and more relaxed and more free. Now place your attention in the crown of your head and the top of your head, where you notice a wonderful tingling sensation. There is a circle of bright white light. And the more you focus on the circle of bright white light, the more it grows up, 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 into a cylinder of bright white light. And just feel that wonderful, exciting, tingling sensation of that cylinder of bright white light growing up from the top of your head, up into the air. And in your mind's eye, you notice above you a giant golden sun. And you recognize this golden sun, for this is your higher self. And you take your cylinder of bright white light and you reach up, connecting your little self with your higher self, plugging into the sun. You begin to charge up. And all of that divine source light begins to flow down into the crown of your head, filling you up with divine source light and love, peace and power. And the energy moves down through your body, spinning and expanding each chakra, moving all the way down and around you in a giant bubble of light. And you marinate in that light, immersing yourself in this wonderful feeling. You feel bigger and brighter and bolder as this bubble of light around you expands. You are a powerful being of light, having an incarnation. All of this love and power flows through you, around you, expands you. And in this bubble of light, you are protected, and you are ready to go on a journey. So you begin to float up in your bubble, in your giant bubble, your shiny bubble. And you're floating above your body, your room, your house, your neighborhood, floating up, looking down at your town, your city, your parish, your county. Looking down, you see your country. And you're just floating up. And now you can see the whole planet below you. And you can see that the planet is covered in little lights. All of the souls on the planet are little lights, and you can see all the little lights lighting up the planet like a Christmas tree. And you begin to notice that these lights are forming a structure, a grid, a net, a pattern. That the lights are connected one to another, wheels of light, grids of light, covering the whole planet. And as you tune into this grid of light, you can see and feel and sense the light moving person to person, light to light, grid to grid, wheel to wheel. And you can feel the light moving through you and from you, to you, around you, pulsing. You are connected in a web of light to other souls everywhere. Feel what that feels like.
And this grid of light is connected also to the trees, to the plants, to the animals, to the water, to Mother Earth herself. And they are all sending you healing light. Allow yourself to receive the healing. The healing light is coursing through you. Feels so good. So uplifting. Reconstructing. You can feel your body reconfiguring itself at a higher vibration as it receives all of this love. Your cells are happy, they're singing in this light. Listen to the sound of your happy cells. As you receive this healing light through your inner connection with all other beings, you also receive revelation, inspiration, messages and ideas. Allow yourself to perceive them now. They come in the form of symbols, words, feelings, knowing. Receive this wisdom. And now you can send a message of gratitude to all the other beings. Send your gratitude for our connection, for the wisdom, for the love we all share. time now to begin to float back down. And as we begin to float back down to Mother Earth, we are aware as we float down of visions of the future. We can see things unfold on the planet, on the world stage as we float down from this higher perspective. The world is changing. How is it changing? Float down now to over your country, your nation state, and just notice how it's changing. You can see its change over time as you float down. You can see the happy ending as well as the challenges. And you float down till you're hovering over your state, your province, your county, and you can see the future of this as well. The evolution that's happening. And you float now down to your town, your village, your city. And you notice the evolution that's happening there. Finally, you float down to your neighborhood, your community, your family. And you can see the evolution that's happening there. The changes, the growth. And you can see yourself and how you too are changing, growing, evolving. And with this greater understanding, this expanded vision of your world, you are ready to return your awareness to your current body, your current room, your current location, remembering everything you've seen, felt, and heard, and bringing all of that vision back with you, all of that love and healing, togetherness and unity. You bring that all back into the current moment, into your current body, and you begin to wiggle around, to wake up, to reorient yourself, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And feel free, if you'd like to either write down some of what you saw or to put a comment in the chat about what you saw or felt or anything that you think is worth sharing with others, or just how it made you feel. If it made you feel good, sometimes that's good to share too with others. Diane, Goddess of Divine, joined late, and there's two people. La Paloma also asked where my live schedule is. I don't have one. I just jump on here whenever. I should create one, I guess. For a while, I was like, there was a certain period of time where I was going live every day for a long time, and then I stopped, and then I started just doing random lives. I want to read what people are saying. Someone is saying Chi-Miigwech, which is thank you in Anishinaabe, right? I'm trying to remember what language that's in, because I knew someone who spoke that. Peace, relaxation. Oh, good. Quantum Mage is having a pull to go inward into community. Yeah, that's what I do. So when I have these lives, I talk about, the spiritual meaning of the political moment, and then I usually lead a meditation. Luckily, Evie, my wonderful moderator, is often here to remind us to meditate. And the meditations are different each time. I just go with what I feel intuitively I'm supposed to do. I know of a 7-4 protest. You know, I've seen a couple posts, and I don't know if, oh yeah, it is in Anishinaabe. I don't know yet. I think each town is going to have its own organizer. Like when we did the No Kings one, there were different organizations in every city. And so if you don't see one, you might have to start one. I know in my city, it was Indivisible who sponsored that particular one. And then like the next town over, it was a different organization. I think like 5051 and SoCal Rising. There were all these different organizations. Oh, thank you, La Paloma. Said it feels natural being in my presence. Thank you for the mahalo. That's, I know, thank you in, I think, Hawaiian, right? The YouTube will be on, the replay will be on YouTube. My URL over there is Jennifer Lisa Vest. That's my full name. Yeah, and so I am thinking about doing more lives, getting back onto a consistent live schedule. So that might be happening. Because I'm gonna, in about 6 weeks, I'm gonna have a little break from teaching, and so I'll have more time to do more lives. I'll have more energy. So thank you everybody for joining me, and I will see you next time. Quantum Mage is asking if I have any guided astral projection. I have a lot of meditations on my YouTube channel. I don't do astral projection one, but I have, but really they all are that. My guided meditations are mostly about that, about traveling beyond the physical. I have some on the Akashic Records, and then I have a number that are just like the one I did, where I'm leading you kind of out of your body to have expanded consciousness. So check out my YouTube at Jennifer Lisa Vest, and thank you all for coming. Thank you to Evie and Iris for being here and moderating, and I will see you next time. And you know, you can do the meditation I just led. You can do it anytime. You don't have to leave your body in meditation. Debbie said, I don't feel like I leave my body. So for some people they do. Some people it's just an expanded awareness. Some people perceive it as like your consciousness floating up. So when I say float up, that's leaving your body, like your consciousness becoming less aware of the physical and having a different awareness. So I will see you all next time. Be well.